Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. I'm Lex
And I'm Vera.
from the Excel Edge podcast show. And today we're going deep on something that's super relevant if you're a Filipino first-time home buyer or maybe thinking about property investment.
Yeah, we've been looking at a pretty in-depth report all about the Metro Manila condo market.
And we want to sort of pull out those key insights that'll really help you guys make those smart choices, when you're thinking about your property journey, whether you're...
No, absolutely. We just want to cut through all that noise out there and give you a clear picture of what's actually happening with condos in Metro Manila and how that kind of fits into the bigger picture, Philippine real estate in general.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're dreaming of that first home or you're looking to really kind of grow that investment portfolio, we're here to help you out, give you the knowledge that you need to succeed. And as Lex mentioned, we're part of Excel Edge Realty, where we focus on mid-price to high-ticket properties.
Right.
So, this is a topic that's close to our hearts for sure. You can find out more about what we do at www.exceledge.com/TechAFH.
All right, so let's jump right in. This report's highlighting something pretty big, and that's that Metro Manila is going through what they're calling an unprecedented oversupply of condo units.
Huge number of unsold properties.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable when you look at the numbers.
Yeah, it is. So by 2024, the value of those unsold condo units in Metro Manila had just ballooned to 158 billion pesos.
Yeah, to put that into perspective, that's a whopping 77% increase from the 89.6 billion that was recorded in 2023.
Yeah, it's massive.
That's a huge shift in just 1 year.
It is. What really stood out to me in this report was the change in absorption rate. So that basically tells us how quickly these units are being sold.
Right.
And the latest estimate is that it's going to take a good 8.2 years, which is about 98 months.
Wow.
To sell all the condos that are currently available.
At the current pace.
At the current pace.
Yeah.
And just to highlight how much things have changed, the projection back in 2023 was just 3.2 years.
Oh, wow. So more than doubled.
More than doubled.
Wow.
So for you guys listening, if you're thinking about buying a condo in Metro Manila, this oversupply could actually be a good thing.
It could.
It might give you a bit more power, when you're negotiating, and potentially lead to better prices in certain segments.
Yeah, exactly. With more units on the market, developers might be willing to offer some pretty attractive incentives or be a bit more flexible on the price just to get those units moving.
Right.
Now, for investors, this situation could mean that you could pick up properties on better terms, but that extended absorption rate, it does suggest that it might take a little bit longer to see those big price jumps or even find tenants.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of finding tenants, this oversupply is also linked to another trend that the report points out, and that is a rise in the vacancy rate in Metro Manila, which is now sitting at 23.9%.
Yeah, that's a lot of empty units.
It is. A lot of units that are unoccupied.
And you can really see the connection between those unsold condo units and this increasing vacancy rate. It's pretty likely that a lot of those empty properties are those newly built unsold condos.
Makes sense.
This higher vacancy rate in the capital, it really highlights the challenges that the Metro Manila condo market is facing right now.
Yeah. And as an investor, that rising vacancy rate brings up a pretty important question. How might this affect your returns from rental income in the short term?
Yeah.
With more vacant units out there, there's more competition to attract tenants, which could mean lower rental prices.
Exactly. While a long-term outlook for the market could still be positive, it's definitely something to think about if your plan is to get rental income from your condo investment in Metro Manila.
Absolutely. So the report also highlights a pretty interesting shift in where the demand for residential properties is actually going. It seems Metro Manila isn't the only game in town anymore.
It's not. There's this quote from Joey Roy Bondoc from Colliers that I thought was really interesting. He was talking about this notable shift in demand, particularly for residential projects outside of Metro Manila.
Yeah. And where are people looking at instead?
Well, the reports points to Batangas, Davao, and Cebu as these key growth hubs.
Interesting.
And the types of properties that are getting popular in these areas are pretty telling: resort-themed and mid-income projects.
I like the sound of resort-themed.
Who doesn't?
So what's really interesting about these regional markets is the mix of buyers that they're attracting. You've got local residents, but also people from overseas.
Yeah, and the report even says that some developments in these regions are getting close to full occupancy.
Wow.
Which shows just how strong the demand is.
So for all our listeners out there, especially if you're a first-time home buyer and maybe finding those Metro Manila prices a little bit tough.
Yeah.
Or if you're an investor looking for something different, maybe different lifestyle, more space, a more relaxed vibe.
Yeah.
These regions could have some really great options.
Definitely. These up-and-coming growth hubs offer something different, and they're appealing to a whole segment of the market that's looking beyond Metro Manila.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth checking out what these areas have to offer in terms of properties and, potential for growth.
Yeah, I agree. Now, even with this oversupply situation in Metro Manila, the report points to a particular segment that's still looking pretty strong.
The pre-selling market.
Yeah, especially for those upscale and luxury properties.
Yeah, it's interesting how the higher end of the market is holding up so well.
It is. So we're talking about properties in prime locations like Makati, CBD, Bonifacio, Global City, Ortigas, and they're usually priced above 12 million pesos.
Right.
And the numbers really back this up. Luxury and upscale project launches actually made up a big 41% of all the new condo offerings in Metro Manila in 2024.
Yeah, that's a big jump from the 20% the year before.
It is a huge jump.
So it seems like that's where developers are seeing the confidence and the demand. The report even suggests that because most of the unsold inventory is in the mid-income sector, developers should really focus on launching more of those expensive projects.
So if you're an investor thinking about those premium properties in Metro Manila, it seems like this segment is doing pretty well compared to the rest of the condo market.
Yeah, it's a totally different story.
It is. And the factors that are driving demand at the higher end of the market, they tend to be different.
Right.
These buyers, they often have different financial situations, different motivations, and they might not be as affected by the same economic pressures that are influencing other parts of the market.
Makes sense.
So let's talk about something that really influences all these real estate trends.
Infrastructure.
Yeah, infrastructure. The report really emphasizes how important these infrastructure projects are.
They're huge. Think about projects like the MRT Line 4, the MRT 7, the Taguig City Integrated Terminal Exchange. These are game changers when it comes to accessibility and how people get around.
And this is all connected to the real estate market because these improvements, they're going to make locations outside of central Metro Manila, like the suburbs and even the provinces, way more appealing.
Right.
If getting around is easier and faster, those areas become real options for people who want to buy or rent.
And we can't forget about the government's Build Better More program.
Yeah.
That's all about speeding up infrastructure development, and the report suggests that it's going to be a key factor in boosting land values and residential demand in those areas that are near these new transportation links and other infrastructure upgrades.
So it makes sense that as these infrastructure plans progress and become a reality, developers are lining up their projects to take advantage of that improved access and the potential for property values to go up.
Definitely. So if you're listening, keeping an eye on these infrastructure developments is really important. Whether you're looking at a property in Metro Manila or in the provinces, it's all connected.
Absolutely. The report also talks about some of the strategies that developers are using to deal with the current market. And knowing about these strategies can actually give you, as a potential buyer or investor, some really good insights.
For sure. For example, they're talking about geographic diversification, basically developers looking beyond Metro Manila to tap in to that stronger demand we're seeing in those regional growth markets we talked about earlier.
Right.
So that gives you an idea of where some of the more promising areas might be.
Exactly. They're also being advised to focus more on those upscale and luxury segments, like we already talked about. And for developers who have a lot of unsold units, they're looking at some creative solutions like more flexible payment plans, rent-to-own arrangements, and longer down payment periods.
That last point is really good to know for buyers. Knowing that developers are thinking about these kinds of options could give you some leverage to negotiate better terms or find easier ways to buy a home or an investment property.
So to sum up our deep dive today, we've seen that the Metro Manila condo market is dealing with a pretty big oversupply of units. And it's probably going to take a while to sell all of those. At the same time, we're seeing a clear shift in demand towards those regional growth centers. And the higher end of the Metro Manila market seems to be holding up better.
And a big part of all of this is the impact of all that infrastructure development that's happening.
For sure. So for our Filipino first-time home buyers and property investors out there, the key takeaways are pretty straightforward. Be aware of what's happening in the Metro Manila market. There might be some good deals to be had. Don't forget about those growing regional markets.
Right.
And keep yourself updated on those infrastructure projects. They're going to play a big role in shaping the future of real estate in the Philippines.
So here's a question for you to think about. Given all these changes in the market, where do you see the best opportunities in the Philippine real estate market to reach your goals? Are you focused on Metro Manila, or are you looking at the provinces? Are you thinking mid-range properties or maybe something a bit more high-end?
Yeah, those are the big questions to consider as you figure out your real estate journey.
And if you want to find out more about mid-price to high-ticket real estate options, you can visit our website, www.exceledge.com/CA2.
Yeah, we'd be happy to chat with you.
Absolutely.
And if you found this deep dive helpful, please click that follow button so you don't miss out on any future discussions, and share this with anyone else who might find it useful. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
See you next time.
See ya.